all of you, at some point in your life have done something great. And you got a wild idea, a vision. You asked a simple question to yourself, a frontal lobe question. The crowning achievement of the human being is the forebrain. That's the workshop. That's the creative center. That's the boss, the CEO, the symphony leader. It has connections to all other parts of the brain. And you asked yourself a question like, what would it be like to create this new job? What would it be like to go on this adventure? What would it be like to change something about myself? The moment you ask that question, the frontal lobe, like a great symphony leader, has connections to all other parts of the brain. And it begins to select different networks of neurons that's housed in the brain from something you learned intellectually or something you experienced. And it seamlessly pieces them together to fire in a new way, and you get a vision, you get an idea. That hologram that you see is a potential in the quantum field that you're selecting. It's an unknown. But the passionate person who does this, the thought that they're embracing in that moment becomes the experience. And they begin to feel the joy, the excitement, the inspiration, the enthusiasm, and theos, filled with God. They come out of their resting state and they feel the emotion before the event. And that emotion is giving the body a sampling of the future. And you just moved into a new state of being. And what did you do? You sat down and you wrote down all the choices you were going to make. And you reviewed them over and over again. Then you wrote down the behaviors you were going to demonstrate, the things you were going to do. And you reviewed them, committing them to your conscious mind, firing and wiring over and over again, giving yourself a direction. You wrote down your goals, the experiences you wanted to walk into. And the more you wrote those goals down, the more you felt enlivened. But then you did something really brilliant. You lit a match in a dark place. And you started to write down the thoughts of the old self that stood in the way. I can't, it's too hard, I'll never change, I'll never be successful. You became conscious of those unconscious thoughts, and you would never let that thought slip by you unchecked in your waking day. And then you wrote down the choices you weren't going to make. And I don't care if you were losing weight or gaining weight or making muscles or stop eating certain things or changing your lifestyle. You reviewed those choices, and you became so conscious of those unconscious choices that you wouldn't make that unconscious choice again. And then you reviewed your habits, and you decided what you were no longer going to do. Whether you're going to wake up early, whether you're going to stop watching TV, whether you stop eating certain foods, doesn't matter. But you made a decision with firm intention. And the amplitude of that decision carried a level of energy that caused your body to respond to your mind. And then you reviewed the experiences that you were going to stay away from. And you became very conscious of those emotions that would bring you to a lower level, drop your energy. And every day, you weaved the path from the old self to the new self. And you reached a point in your life, after you did it enough times, those long nights, lonely moments, stepping out into the unknown, where you knew it was going to happen. You knew it. You just knew that everything lined up. And that's when you relaxed. You surrendered. Now it was no longer about creating the event, the experience. It was the fact that you did it. When you relax into it like that, you start loving yourself a little bit more. And the side effect of that is you start giving. You start caring. You're more present. You're less in survival. So you see, you already know how to do this. But what I want people to do is to make it a skill. And so, there's an intelligence that's giving you life right now. It's keeping your heart beating and digesting your food and organizing trillions of functions in every single cell of your body. It's organizing mutations in your DNA. There's some invisible force that's giving you life. But that same intelligence that's keeping your heart beating and digesting your food is the same intelligence that's creating supernovas in distant galaxies and causing flowers to bloom. It's both personal and universal. It's within you and it's all around you. And you can't see it, and you can't smell it, and you can't taste it, and you can't feel it. But it is the giver of life. And it is a consciousness. And consciousness is awareness, and awareness is paying attention. And it is the observer observing you into life. The emotion is a record of the past, and those emotions are driving your thoughts, then you're thinking in the past. And if you told me that you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, the law still applies. But you keep creating your past over and over again. You keep thinking the same thoughts, you turn on a set of circuits in your brain, you have an insecure thought, you have an unworthy thought, you have a self-depreciating thought. You turn on different networks in your brain, you produce a level of mind, another part of the brain makes a chemical that makes you feel unworthy, insecure, or self-depreciating. The moment you feel those emotions, the brain is checking in with the body. And the brain begins to generate more corresponding thoughts equal to that emotional state. And all of a sudden now, it makes more chemicals for you to feel that exact same way, and then you think more corresponding thoughts equal to your feelings, and then you say, after 20 years of that, I am insecure. Because thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body. And how you think and how you feel creates a state of being. And a state of being is when mind and body are working together. So whenever you say, I am anything, you are commanding your mind and body to a destiny. Now here's the problem. The redundancy of that cycle over and over again, 20 or 30 or 40 years, conditions the body to subconsciously become the mind of that emotion. And now the body is the mind. And the body, as the unconscious mind, does not know the difference between the actual experience in your life that creates the emotion and the emotion that you're fabricating by thought alone. To the body, it's exactly the same. So the body is believing it's living in the same past experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The body is enslaved to the past. And if the body has become the mind of that emotion, the body literally is in the past. And you can't create a new future holding on to the emotions of the past. So then when you draw from this vital field of energy and you turn it into chemistry, and the field around your body shrinks, and you are more matter and less energy, more particle, less wave, you become a materialist. And you define your reality with your senses, because when that stress response is turned on, your attention is on the outer environment, because that's where the danger is. And our brain narrows its focus on one thing. And how many people here have been stressed and you obsess about the same thought over and over again? And that's because those chemicals are forcing you to narrow your focus on the most eminent and important thing in your life. And when you do that, and you start thinking about the problems you have and the people you need to take care of and the things you have to do and the places you have to go, each one of those people or things or places has a neurological network assigned to it. And as you shift your attention from one to the next, the brain starts to fire incoherently. And if you were to measure those brain waves, they're very disorderly. They're disintegrated. They're incoherent. And when your brain's incoherent, you're incoherent. And when your brain isn't working right, you're not working right. The amazing thing then is when you draw from that field and you are matter trying to change matter, you will always try to force the outcomes in your life. You try to control the outcomes in your life. You try to predict them because you are matter trying to affect matter. And because we live in this realm of 3 dimensions, we live in a realm where there's infinite space. And you experience time by moving through space. And so it takes time to get your goals achieved because you got to drag your body from one end of the universe to the other to get what you want. The new house, the new car, takes time. It's 3-dimensional creation. And so people spend 70% of their time living in survival. And that's what begins to downregulate genes to create disease. And when you are in survival, you will focus on 3 things only. Your body, got to take care of your body. Things in your environment, people in your environment, places you have to go in your environment, and time. The body, the environment, and time. And we begin to believe that we're bodies living in an environment, living in time, and we forget that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. But in survival, it's very difficult to create because all the blood flow goes to the hindbrain with those emotions and away from the forebrain, and you're more prone to react. And when those chemicals turn on, there'll always be a gap between the way things appear and the way things really are. It will alter your perception. And if you react during that chemical change, you'll always say the same thing. I should have never said that. I should have never done that. I should have never thought that. I should have never sent that email. Because now you're acting like an amped up animal with a big memory bank. When you teach people how to no longer live in the future or live in the past, trying to predict their future, return to the familiar past, and you teach them what it means to be in the present moment, and they labor for that present moment, when they finally hit that sweet spot, something amazing